so much I want you. Yeah, yeah. I know it's only been 3 weeks and you're a little insecure. But let me tell you what I'm feeling. I promise that I love you and never let you
Hello
go.
and welcome to another episode of Interview with a Schizophrenic. I'm your host, Duncan Tamrasinger, and today I have the great pleasure of having Paul with me. He lives in Alberta in Canada. Paul, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, Duncan. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, man. So, and I just wanted to ask, what's the COVID situation like with you?
It's not bad. It's rising a little bit, but people are still doing what they're doing. I'm still working,
Yeah.
fortunately. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's not bad. It's not that bad.
Okay, so what I usually do is ask you how your mental health journey began. So if you'd like to talk about that, we might be going back a few years. Did you go into hospital? What were your symptoms? How did you get a diagnosis? If you'd like to talk about that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Things started for me. Just one day I heard a voice spoke to me, and I quit my job. And this is slowly progressing up to this, anyways. And I quit my job and fasted, went on a fast pretty much because I felt that's what I was to do, and stopped eating completely. Fasted for like 40 something days, and only started to eat because I was afraid. And let me tell you, those days were hellish. It was.
So when was this? What age were you? But
I was about.
you're
Yeah, I was about 18.
18, okay.
Yeah, 18. So I, finished high school and then was working for a bit, and then that's when it started, and yeah, went and started going that direction, and yeah, so I went on this fast, and after I broke it because I was afraid I was gonna die,
Yeah.
and then was going for a bit. Um, During this time, though, it was a lot. Like I've been seeing demons in my family as demons and witches, and even before the fast, but it just intensified then. And so after I broke it, I did it again, and then it was after that my mom called the emergency services, and then they took me to the hospital, and that's when they having me speak to the doctors and stuff. They diagnosed me with paranoid schizophrenia with delusions of grandeur. So I thought it
So
was a
you
prophet or something like that.
so you got a diagnosis when you were pretty young then, when you were
Yeah.
about 18, 19, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you were fasting because you were paranoid, you were going through a delusion. So you just said you thought you were a prophet. So, you were that's what you told the doctors, that's what was going on, right?
Yeah, that was going on. I was I thought this voice was God, and for a while I've been feeling like that's what I'm supposed to be fasting or whatever. So, but a voice spoke to me and said, "I'll give you 1 week," and I just interpreted that as that's what it meant because that's what's been going through my head, and yeah, so it's just went from there, and it just been it was a pretty dark experience. Yeah, I got start having hallucinations, visual hallucinations, auditory, and yeah. So the doctors recognized that pretty quick, and having spoken to them and telling them what I was thinking, because the voice told me that I was a prophet, and so I was honest with them,
Yeah.
and so
You,
they got.
when I look back at my own history, um, you know, I've done some pretty strange things as well because I believe that I was supposed to do them.
Mhm.
Is like, and yeah, I've had religious delusions as well where I think I've been hearing God and the devil,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that sort of thing,
that's
and
what it was. It.
it's really scary and kind of you're just trying to just get through it, and it's but yeah,
Well,
so yeah, go on.
it was yeah, it was terrifying because uh everyone I saw were like demons or
Mm,
witches, and they were reading my mind. It's like this big conspiracy against me, you know.
mm,
And so it was like I was like the only person that was not a part of this collective.
mm,
You know what I mean? So it was pretty an isolating situation, right? And so when I'm talking to doctors, I was afraid of them because they were reading my mind as well. So
mm.
I would speak sometimes, and then sometimes the voice would tell me to not speak, so I would stop talking, and it was just an odd, weird situation. And so they could see that delusion and that the way I was acting, that there was definitely not only that, was I was skin and bones by the time when they brought me in.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
I think that's probably. I think the fact that you were not eating,
yeah,
that would have rang big alarm bells.
yeah,
At the hospital, they'd be like, "Well, this is. It's not just mental. This is like life threatening here.
yes,
So we've got to do something pretty quick.
yeah,
So I think that probably gave the doctors a sense of urgency.
yeah.
I would say. So what happened after? How long did you stay in hospital? What was that like?
I was in a hospital for maybe some months the first time. Um,
Yeah.
they put me on these meds and so forth, and once they did all this IV to get my numbers up, and then I wouldn't eat for a good while I was still in there. I was just they started feeding me with a feeding tube there,
You're kidding
and
me.
yeah, so they did all that, and then after a while, I'm thinking I can't do this fasting thing because I'm being fed with this tube. So what I
Mm,
did was I started eating with the purpose of just getting out so I can start doing it again. And
mm,
that's kind of what happened. So I was out for a couple months again, eating and just playing the part, trying to pretend everything's good and I'm fitting in, and then eventually I'll stop and this whole thing starts over again. And it was like the
mm.
cycle for some years actually. And
Okay.
yeah, so
So would you say this was one persistent paranoid delusion that you were having? I mean, one because it seems to me that some people with schizophrenia have multiple delusions, and
mhm.
some have one prominent,
Yes.
powerful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
that's what it was. They
Yeah,
said it was religiosity or something,
yeah,
is what they called it, and that's why it was explaining to me that there's a fixed delusion, and
mm,
so that's why when the meds weren't working on different meds, and then they decided to try ECT, electroconvulsive
mm.
therapy. So I did that like 3 times or something like that,
You
and
serious?
yeah. So, and after that, it was still didn't work. I was still on the same path. So eventually, they wanted to commit me to a long-term care facility where they're going to give me a gastric little tube in my stomach there, so they could
Mm,
feed me because the tube in my nose, down to my nasal gastric tube, wouldn't it wasn't a long-term solution. But the way
mm,
my health going in this up and down thing for all these years, I figure, well, they're gonna have to put a hole in my stomach and feed me with this tube, permanent tube in my stomach. So at a long term care facility, and but my mom thankfully was not uh, too fond of the idea. So she figured, you know what, if he goes there, I'm not. She didn't drive, so she won't be able to come visit me as often, and she doesn't know how they're gonna treat me there. So she figured, you know
yeah.
what, at least she'll have me home for some time, and if I go to hospital, they can visit me.
Mm,
So that, you know, was, yeah, that's kind of how it worked out, because it was, I imagine, a frustrating thing for the doctors because they do all these things and everything's going okay. And then I leave, and then some months later, I come back in the same condition as I was the first time, and they're trying different things and nothing's working. What they do, right?
So did you end up in that facility then?
No,
The long.
no, I
You didn't.
didn't. I didn't. There was a point where I don't know. I heard a voice. It spoke. There's all this voice and the devil and God, and then there's another a
Mm,
voice spoke to me, and I just said, What am I doing?" you know, it's like, this isn't God. And then from that point, I realized, you know what, man, I gotta get out. I can't do this anymore. So, um, yeah, from that point on is when I stopped the carrying on this cycle. I realized this is not God. This is I'm just being taken for a ride here.
Yeah.
So it's when once I was able to, I don't know why, for some reason, I cannot tell you why in the world I heard this voice so many times that I attributed to God, and this time I said, okay, it's not, And so once I was able to recognize that is a lie, it became easier to not continue the cycle. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like this is illusion that it casts over your mind, and then once you see through the illusion, then you know the power that it has. It's no longer there.
Were you suicidal, or did you just didn't want to eat, or was it suicidal as well, or?
No, actually, you know what? I shouldn't say I just snapped out of it like that. That's not how it went. I wasn't suicidal. The fasting was to get me to a different state, I guess, so I can go and do what God wanted me to do. But I had to
Yeah.
go through this process. Now I became suicidal afterward when I realized that this wasn't God, and I thought I'm trapped because I was thinking that God was gonna set me free from these voices and all this stuff. So
Mm.
now when I realized that that's not God, and now I'm thinking all these voices and this hatred that I feel the world has for me, and this constant torment in my mind, the only hope I had, the only hope I really had to continue was the hope that I'd be delivered from it. But now that's not going to happen. And that was
Mm.
a terrible burden for me. So there was no more reason for me to live. And at one point, my heart started calling for, like, it was like a hot burning sensation in there that I wanted to go and take a knife and reach it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I approached that point of suicide because it's the only way I could escape this torment and this misery, this heavy misery. I'd walk the streets at night crying because
Mm.
I felt so hopeless and to go into this bottomless pit of despair. This is where I
Yeah,
was, man.
I think it's quite a significant percentage of schizophrenia patients do attempt suicide in some manner.
Hmm.
I think it's like
Yeah.
I was watching on YouTube. I was watching an interview of a schizophrenia patient from the 1960s,
Yeah.
and then I read in the comments, seemingly this, this nice young man, seemingly this man committed suicide a few years when, it just happens quite a lot that
Yeah.
there's this, the amount of despair and hopelessness,
Hmm.
and you just look for something outside of life
Yeah.
to help you.
It's strong, man. And I was there. Held that knife to my chest, and I was ready. But I get pretty close. But it's from that moment that I don't know, something just said, as a thought, I said, "What are you doing, man? Like, why are you doing this?" Or it says you're a coward. And I'm like, why? And then I realized, because you're only here because you're afraid. You're afraid that everybody's rejecting you, and you're gonna and you don't want to live with always this anxiety came over me when I was around people. So I would sweat. I love being alone because I would feel better, and it was more peaceful being alone with the tormentors of my mind than it was being around people. It was worse, so it's a very
Yeah.
messed up uh state.
Would you say it's worse because, like, people, they don't they you perhaps you wanted to talk about it and they weren't giving that to
No,
you? No.
no, because remember, I'm seeing these people as witches and as demons who
Okay,
really
got it.
want to kill me. And so now they're reading my mind. And my mind was constantly cursing, and it was like Tourette syndrome, except in my mind. I couldn't stop it. All right. I would repeat the same things, these vulgar things all the time. And now these are people I'm talking to, my family, my friends, whatever. And I'm saying these god awful things, and they read it, and they'll sometimes say, comment on this things that's come in my head. So I was always trying to stop it because I hated it, and
Mhm.
but I couldn't stop it, and so I would get all anxious and afraid, and just so I would just be sweating because I was so nervous trying to stop these awful thoughts. So when I was alone now, it wasn't as bad because you know what I mean, that I wasn't so anxious. When the
Mhm.
anxiousness left, the thoughts were still there constantly. I honestly, from the first time this started, I never had a moment of quiet in my mind until I went to sleep. And when I woke up, it was right there to greet me. Every day, uh, every moment, always my mind was going. I'm talking to somebody, I couldn't even pay attention to what they're saying because I'm telling these voices, shut up, shut up, shut up, constant. Yeah.
So so you're 39 now. What age were you when this was kind of going on?
Man, that was from the probably even before I started fast. That was a little bit before that, actually, the voice speaking repetitive stuff like that. Um, so from that time till about maybe, man, I was probably like 28, 29, or maybe 30 or something like that when I started when yeah, till about then still things started to get better for me, um mental wise, with that voice there. But yeah, it was just from the start to the whole that many years constantly.
So what was I want to hear about how you got to a better place. So you're about 30. What happened? What helped you, and tell us about that process.
Well, like I said, the first thing was recognizing that this was it was a lie. This whole fasting, there's no God talking to me and telling me to do this stuff. And when going to that point of despair and recognizing that I am only interested in killing myself because, one, I'm really afraid of everybody. I'm afraid of just the constant rejection I felt. So from that point, I realized, you know what? I said to myself, well, yeah, I am a coward. And I thought, I'm not going to do this. You know what? I'm going to live. I'm going to live simply because people don't want me to live. I said, you know what? I'm gonna if they want to kill me, let them kill me. I'm not gonna do their job for them. So that's still all this in delusion talking, but that pulled me out from that brink, and I just out of sheer stubbornness, really, just to be stubborn. That's the only reason why I want to live. And then from then, I started to really say, you know what, since that's what my attitude, and then it became, well, I'm not gonna live in my room anymore. After that's where my favorite place was. I never used to go greet my family. They come home, they always come to see me because I'd be hiding away in my room. So what I did now, I started to challenge all that. I used to be so anxious because I hate being around people. So now I realized, I said, you know what, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk to my mom. And I'm just, instead of holding back and trying to protect my thoughts from being corrupted, I'm not, listen, I'm not, that's not me. So why am I focusing on something that's not me? So just ignore that and just go and just say hi and try to be normal, try to just relax. And that's kind of how things started. I just 10 minutes, man. And it felt like after 10 minutes a day, I did that to start. And it was such after I left, that my presence of somebody else, it was such a relief because it was so difficult to stand there and not be disturbed, with anxiety and fear and so forth. So I just practiced like that with my family, and the more I did it, the more comfortable it became over time. And till I started to go outside for walks, and then I started seeing people and I started saying hi to them and just challenging the things that were pushing against me. And I pushed back a little bit until I kind of regained more and more of myself. Yeah. So from there, I went, did that for some months, and however long it was, then I went and I got a job. Only did part-time at first, and it was the same thing, just a different environment. So it was a whole, still got all the things I did at home, I had to take that and bring it on a work scene now, and it's a bigger setting, and it was a heavy thing, but I got through it.
Okay, so did you find that you were alienated by your friends and family during your 20s when it was chronic? I mean, but I think I get the impression that you wanted solitude.
I did. I
Yeah.
hated. I didn't want to be around anybody. But my mom, my family were great, man. My family, they were supportive. My mom especially, she fought for me, and she took she enacted the Mental Care Act here, where somebody is not a danger to themselves or others, then they can take away have rights over that person. So pretty much she made decisions for me to go in the hospital, because I did when I was there the first time. I signed myself out, but now when she took over guardianship, I couldn't do that. Everything had to go through her, and so she really fought for me. Whatever issues was, she took it on. My sisters and so forth, they all came together and supported me. Friends, I lost a lot of friends on the way, but a lot of it is I rejected everyone pretty much. So that was why I was alone from the friends, anyways. So I don't know how people would have acted in that respect.
So just kind of moving to the present day, do you still have symptoms? What are you going through now? How's your life? I mean, what are things for you like in 2020?
It's pretty good, man. I'm pretty much like where I was before all the foolishness started.
Yeah.
I or further, I guess, further ahead, but I don't have any of that symptoms anymore. I got into I end up getting to the trades, got my red seal electrical. So I work full time. I have my place here, live with my girlfriend.
Okay, that's great, man.
So we're gonna get married soon. So yeah, I'm pretty much I'm recovered,
That's
man.
awesome, man. That's awesome.
It's
That's an awesome recovery story, man. That's awesome.
yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
happy for you, man.
Thanks,
And
man.
you also do a YouTube channel
Yes.
where you produce vlogs. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, you know what, for a long time, my family's been telling me my mom especially, you should write a book, or you should do this and that, because just looking from where I was to where I am, or where I got to when she was telling me about that, it was night and day. And she gave me a journal that she kept, and it was just reading that stuff, just how broken she was, watching me going through that, wondering if I'm ever going to recover, and talking to the doctor, and says, is it possible for Paul to return to where he was? And she's like, no. Like, the doctor said, 99% of 1% of people diagnosed with schizophrenia recover to the point that they don't need medications. Says your son is not one of them. And just where it was going, that's what it looked like. I can't blame him for saying that, but and me defying all that odds and gotten to where I was, it was incredible to her, So she said that, and I kind of said, nah, people don't want to hear this stuff, man, because it's, it's a lot different than what we're told, and people, sometimes we just listen to what we're told and by the experts or so forth, and so we kind of go with that. So I'm like, but I don't know, after some years of kind of rejecting that, I started thinking, I'm like, I've been given this opportunity to take this path and recover to where they say it was impossible. Is it right for me to keep that to myself? You know what I mean? So I decided to kind of share that and kind of share the process on how I got through that, my mental attitude, and just kind of the what it took for me to regain my life, and that it's not as necessarily as impossible as we're told, but yet there is hope. Even within the midst of this darkness that is schizophrenia, there's definitely hope.
I think it's so important to, I'm a few years older than you, but I think it's so important for those of us who've gone through the chronic phase. We're kind of coming out the other side, to share our stories, so that the youngsters, who are just dealing with this for the first time in their lives, they've got someone who they can hear, someone who's gone through it, and they don't feel so alone. Because
yes.
I think the thing about schizophrenia, I think, is that if you not part of a community, you can just feel as if you're the only one in the world who this is happening to.
Yes.
And that actually makes the symptoms worse.
Yeah.
Because you just think this is only happening to me. But if you hear somebody else is going through similar stuff, you think, oh, actually, yeah,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
it makes a
100%.
big difference.
100%. And you know what? Isolation is a killer. When you
Yeah.
feel you're alone, and I've been there when I was alone and by myself, I wouldn't talk to anybody about what I was struggling with. And that's the power of the illness, is to keep people isolated. Once you're
Mm.
isolated, you don't get help because you don't trust anybody, or you feel
Mm.
so alone that no one will understand you. But we don't want to take the chance because we feel, how we're going to be treated, are we going to be looked at? So we don't want to be in that position. So it's kind of, want to empower people to kind of put themselves out there, talk about it. Do you need help? Get help. And because when you're alone, when you're isolated, it takes you down a darker, deeper and darker place, and it tend to go spiral just into a worse state than coming forward, getting help, and kind of don't fall so far like the way I did. It almost took my life.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, Paul. I think we can wrap it up there. Would you like to give the name of your YouTube channel? What I'll do is I'll put a link in the description of this podcast. So, what would you like to give the name of the channel?
Yes, that's The Morning Mist 99, Above Schizophrenia.
Okay, cool.
Right. I just changed the name. It was it was Beyond Schizophrenia, but now it's Above and Beyond Schizophrenia. The Morning Mist 99, Above and Beyond Schizophrenia.
Okay, cool. So, what do you have any particular preference of any music?
Oh no, not really. I don't really listen to much music.
Okay, I'll just play some electronic beats. You know, it was a real pleasure to speak with you today, Paul. You know, and I think you know that we're all part of a movement to get the real truth behind schizophrenia out there. We're fighting against the media who kind of demonize us a little bit. You know, so it's a real pleasure to speak with you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity, Duncan. Appreciate it.